started last week, and basically it's based on behavioral patterns and the precursors to a positive behavioral change. The assumption, of course, is that all of us, each one of us, wants to better ourselves in anything that we do. Whenever you think you have arrived, you start dying, you stop learning. But whenever you think that wherever you have attained and whatever heights you have gotten to, you can still increase your ability, you can come into new levels of understanding, paradigms which obviously affect your output and your lifestyle, then the news will be good that we're on a positive change module. Last week we said that it's interesting to note that even when we say we will not do something, human behavior statistics tends to show that even when you say you wouldn't do something, you end up doing it. Whether you swear, whether you give your word, sometimes in terms of behavior, you find that the actions come from a set of precursors. And as we said last week, if you want to change a person, a group's behavioral pattern, their actions, if you just touch the actions themselves, you would not succeed. You will be frustrated. You probably will give up, because action comes from a whole bunch of things. And we have collectively put those things together, and we have called them mindsets, how the mind has been set and fixed. And I remember saying last week that sometimes infantile childhood mindsets can be adjusted, but once you get into adult mindset, it's really a big challenge. The reason being that habitual behavior, continuous practice for good or for bad, has set in, and certain behaviors become almost like second nature. You do them not because you were even conscious that you were going to do them, but you do them all the same because you have been doing them. And sometimes when you look to the left or to the right of you, it's the same that's being done anyway. If you live amongst the people who are very generous, who are very nice, who are very positive, uplifting and encouraging, chances are it will become part of your nature, because that's the environment in which you find yourself. You imbibe that kind of a culture and mindset and behavioral style, and you are like that. And chances are, if you grow up in the opposite, in a place where everybody fights and they wake up in the morning and swear words are flying over, that's what people do. They cuss, they insult. People are crooked, they don't give, they hoard, they're greedy, they fight, they undermine. You know, when you grow up like that, that becomes life for you. And you take on a mindset, a worldview that you have to fight. You also have to be a schemer. You have to be undermining. You got to be a survivor. You have to put on chameleon attitudes where you can be as flexible as you can. You are never wrong, you are never right, no matter which managing director comes or which government comes or which leader comes, you would always survive, because for you, you grew up in that kind of an environment where yes means nothing, no means nothing, only perhaps, maybe runs your life. You are situationally flexible and ethical. Nothing is set in stone, and your values are the values of what you saw. So either way, if you wanted to bring a change in the life of somebody who was very orderly, efficient, structured, believed that right was right, wrong was wrong, has to work hard and is content with what they have and does not put their eyes on other people's property, but they rather even support and celebrate other people's things even if it's not theirs. It's difficult to change such people to become very greedy, because it's also a mindset. Because both mindsets and any kind of mindset has been fed by many testimonies, examples. There's a ubiquitous examples that this is how we did it. If you look at family history, my great-grandfather was like that, my grandfather was like that, my father was like that, so I am a businessman. You hear people talk like that. I am a seamstress. We were all in the trade business. So it's very difficult to get such a person just become somebody who sits about and just loafs around. But what we tend to see with all of us is that when we want to change behavior, albeit for good, we want to transition and paradigm people from maybe even good to excellent and efficient, sometimes we just shoot at the behavior. Don't do this. I have warned you not to do this. Don't do this. And, and it's done all the same. And you wonder why, what is wrong? And you say, Halebiden Amare. People talk like that. What's wrong with these people? Your head is thick, That's because you are pushing to change behavior and forgetting that behavior comes from mindset. Last week we looked at a scripture that went like this. In the book of Proverbs in chapter 23, we looked at verse 6 and 7. And let me paraphrase it from the Bible. It says, do not be eager to go to the house of a miser, nor partake of his delicate food, his delicacies, because as he thinks in his heart, so is he. Ladies and gentlemen, most of us think with our brain and our mind, and that's true. But from scriptures, and I'm sure we can all attest to that and affirm to that, there's a deeper level of thinking, heart thinking, which brings on board the various complex variables and issues before we make a decision. There is always simple thinking and simple logic based upon simple thinking, and there is always complex, deep logic based upon deep thinking. Simple logic ought to be the exclusive preserve of little kids, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6, 7. There is a popular TV program. I'm not too sure. I think the anchor probably has died now. His name was Art Linkletter, Mr. Linkletter, and he later, I think he teamed up with Bill Cosby along the line. And they used to have a program called Kids Say the Darndest Things. I mean, just the things that children will say. And you will be laughing because children just have simple logic. I remember many, many years ago, I think my daughter must have been 4 or 5. One of the early years when this TV program started, 1996. So my daughter was 2 then, so it must have been around 98. I remember once I was driving her to school, and we were driving past a bunch of kids going to school, and they were all shouting, Pastor Forbes, Pastor Forbes, Pastor Forbes, Pastor Forbes, and I was saying yes. And my daughter was at the back of the car, and she said to me, Daddy, why do many people call your name? And I said to her, Angelan, it's because they know me, they see me on TV. And every parent knows that when you've given that first answer, and then the kids are quiet for a few seconds, then they are working out their own logic and reasoning. But that is simple child's logic. So she said to me, well, Daddy, change your name. She said, change your name. And I said to Angela, if I change my name to another name, they will still call me by that other name. But you see, that level of analysis and thought was not given to her because she was like 3.5, 4. So the depth of thinking that can bring about a behavioral transformation goes beyond simple thinking, simple logic, and it means that a whole lot of variables must be brought to the table before we can get at a conclusion. If not, as I said, it gets very frustrated. And any one of us in any form of leadership, be it a family leadership, a school leadership, a company leadership, an institution's leadership, political leadership, military leadership, civil society, anybody who is in leadership, chances are, if they are not just a manager, if they are a leader, more often than not, they are vision-driven. Some of us are so vision-driven, maybe to the expense of human resource development, the base of the people. Because as always, the product is good.